here to discuss a defining moment. That is a moment when you realize that something just happened and your life is never going to be the same. Did your child die in a car accident? And from now on, you're going to have the call to action. Maybe your marriage is breaking up, or your mother, who you're so close to, has dementia. It will define who you are from now on. And for me, it was finding out that my son, at least I thought, could not hear. And we were perplexed to figure out, well, why is that? And so we take him to a doctor who had taken various, not studies, but basically had to examine him and test. And when we got back to his office, I remember the elevator. That elevator stuck in my mind. And that elevator was going to be a metaphor because the door opened. And little did we know that once that door closed, whatever was back there, things are about to change. We go up that elevator, out the door, and I felt a little shove. Things very different. And we sat in the room with the psychologist, and he said something that no mother wants to hear. And back then, they started by saying that your child is delayed developmentally. And I'm thinking, I was fairly young, what does that mean? I didn't know that defining moment was in the room with me. He decided to accompany us because although the doctor was telling us this information, he was going to jump in when it was time to announce what it was. And defining moment was going to stay around for a while. And so I remember the initial shock, as if something, a brick had just hit me across the face. And some of you may have been there because you may have gotten a call about something that changed your life forever. Did the doctor just say you had cancer? Isn't that for other people? I was having this life-changing experience, and I thought, well, I'm still young. Isn't that for old people? And I remember when he walked us to the elevator, and I just didn't remember what my name was. Who? Because I was so shocked. And as we got in the elevator, and the door opened again to take us back to our new life. Because some of you, when you got your defining moment, you had to realize that you had a new life. And as the door was closing and I'm in initial shock, the doctor shows up again. I'm like, well, haven't you said enough? I can only take but so much. And he pushes the door open. He just needs to tell us that my son, whose name is Armand, is the same person that we're taking down that we brought up. So treat him the same way. And I'm thinking, I need to be treated a different way right now. And whatever you're saying isn't connecting. What does that mean? Because when defining moment comes to visit, and we at least think it's unscheduled, we can't comprehend. Because as they say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And I had plans because I felt I had done all of the right things. So if you do the right things, aren't the right things supposed to happen? I didn't have a nephew who was disabled, or a niece, a cousin. Can't recall any friends. But defining moment showed up and did not care didn't ask me, didn't RSVP into my life. Just kind of showed up. And I needed to get home, wherever home was, because I couldn't remember anything. Because I needed to talk to somebody. I was going to have a conversation. If you have ever been angry and you couldn't wait to get out that door to confront the person who just ticked you off. And in my case, as they say, your arms are too short to box with God. I had some gloves on, and I was meeting him in my bathroom because I needed to figure this all out. Because after all, I had done all the right things. And my ego says this happens to other people. If you ever had a mother who had dementia, you can't figure it out. Why my mom? But you see, one thing I've learned is a defining moment really showed up decades before that day in June with that doctor. Because defining moment, I think he was there when I was 12. And I ran home from school and I wrote, "Dear Diary, I met the cutest guy." And 6 years later, that guy asked me out for a date. And then 6 years later, that guy asked me to marry him. And about 6 or so years later, that guy was carrying that little boy. And so although I don't think I was prepared, defining moment said, "I got you at 12." Because when I thought that Cupid shot a bow and arrow and hit me because I just love this guy, defining moment, I got something for you that's going to take place decades from now. And that guy is going to play a crucial role because he's an excellent father. And there are times I think, how could I have done it without him? And so I share my defining moment because I know that when something happens in your life, you have to understand it's really a call to action. You can't undo yesterday. Can't rewind the tape. This is now your newsreel in your life. So it's great that we're having the what next, because after I calmed down and God was shaking his head at me, I said, okay, what do we do from here? That's all we could do. I didn't drink, so I couldn't drink. Wasn't going to do drugs. Could have wallowed in self-pity for a short time, but my priority was that young man. And a mother wallowing in self-pity could not fight the system to assure that he would get the best education, the best services. So defining moments knew who to choose. He knew before Armand even got here. Because I didn't choose Armand. Somewhere, defining moment did the picking. And so I tell my story because something in your own life happened. And you may feel as if you just don't know what to do. But you have to understand that it is a call to action. When something happens, there is something calling you to do something. Martin Luther King was called to do something. Our heroes were called to do something. So today, Armand is a happy young adult. And I always told myself that his disorder could not, because he was diagnosed as autistic, I didn't say that, be in vain. And so when Armand goes and volunteers at the nursing home, and the lady sends home a card saying how much she appreciated, then I think, good job. Because when Armand was very young, I wrote in his journal before I even knew the outcome. He was even disabled. I said, if you ever want to know what pleases your mother, do the things that God will judge you by, not people. So when that lady sent that card home, because Armand has impacted a diversity of people, I knew that he had impact on her life. And when Armand sits down to eat, I told him when he was very young, you pray if I put one French fry on that table. I want you to be grateful. And so when Armand was at a friend's house and the mother served the food, he had to bow his head down, and the friend was about to just eat. And he looked over and said, I think I better pray on this. And so when I think he got at least one person to pray. And so I refused to accept this as something that was so negative in my life, because I have to flip the script, even though there was none. There was no director, no actor for me to follow. There was no producer, and there was no stage. I had to put myself on a stage so that I can communicate that story and have an impact on something that may be in some way related. So Armand is a very peaceful young man, and he brings so much peace into my life. He lived up to what I said to him, that you do the things that God would judge you by, not what people would judge you by. Even though he doesn't really understand what that means, I ended up getting what I wanted. I didn't say I want a child who would do the things that God would judge him by, but not be autistic. I got what I had asked for. So it was a defining moment who I still feel is here with me today to say, see, I told you. Because you are a different person. When that one thing happens, it's not a minute that changes. It's not a day that changes. It is a life-changing experience that gives you a responsibility to somebody else. So no more self-pity about what's happening to you. You're not the only one. Because the defining moment doesn't care. Doesn't care how much money you have. Doesn't care how cute you are. It simply doesn't care. It is there to get you to learn something and to teach somebody else. You may leave here now, and a defining moment is on the other end of the phone. You never know what you're going home to, or if you have a home to go to. Those kids that we love so much and appreciate, we better hope they stay around and not die before we do. But defining moment, it's not a mean thing. It just doesn't care. When it's time, it's time. And I want to thank you all for your time.